evening, everyone. Welcome to Awaken the World live stream this evening, our quick talk. Welcome to our fascist democracy. Monday, April 15th, 5:15 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Had a little bit of technical difficulties on our end, and I have yet to engage the browser. Yeah, our apologies. We had a brief issue that we had to deal with, and sometimes that's just the way it happens. So, there we go. Now we're back where we belong. So, my apologies on that for being a little bit late. Some difficulties we had to deal with. Not a big deal. It has been solved. So, where are we at? Well, we're going to talk this evening about what's essentially, we're living in a fascist democratic state. And most people are not even aware of it. And I want to read something to you. First of all, that this is a letter from Jeffrey C. Goldfarb. And Jeffrey was over in Paris and looking back upon what was going on in the United States. And this is what he's written about it. Focus matters. Up close, I follow the news in detail, each abominable act, every unbelievable tweet. From afar, I know I am missing details, but think I may be seeing more clearly the big picture. When I am in the thick of it all, I believe, I may not fully realize how bad things have become. But at a distance, the horror is stark. It appears to be fascism in many ways. Not a fascist regime, to be sure, but a fascist movement, led by its leader, the President of the United States. I am a sober person with deep aesthetic and moral appreciation of the beauty of the gray. I believe it is crucial, democratic importance, not to vilify your opponents, to understand and try to persuade them, and then to be open to be persuaded by them. I think it is imperative to seek common ground with people with whom you disagree. Yet, when it comes to the emerging order of things in Washington, this is no longer possible. The leader and a significant portion of his supporters are not my democratic opponents, but my enemies. Enemies of democracy. It's been a good week for fascism in America. The Supreme Court legitimized the Muslim ban. Immigrants have been vilified as criminals. Zero tolerance of immigrants has revealed its pathological aspects. And a concerned citizen taken up arms against fake news, killing 5 journalists, prompting law enforcement agencies around the country to provide protection at the headquarters of media organizations, according to the much vilified, failing New York Times, as the great leader had put it. He further declared that illegal immigrants are infesting America. His supporters cheer, and those in his party who should speak up in protest remain silent. The children of the asylum seekers are forcibly separated from their parents, and when that is finally retracted, they are incarcerated together at military bases. Racial and gender justice, unions, the environment, public education, consumer and voting rights are all officially attacked. The leader divides the nation between real Americans, his supporters, and his enemies, anyone who questions his policies, but especially his person. He is governing as he campaigned, declaring in his address to the Republican convention, I am the only one who can fix our problems. The fascist leader lies and cheats. His might makes right. His repeated lies become the asserted truth propagated by the semi-official news bureau, Fox News and Company. The leader speaks and tweaks, and his supporters follow. He can do no wrong. He boasts and he deceives. He asserts, proclaims, and dictates, but doesn't persuade, doesn't reason. He speaks only to and for his fervent supporters. his base in the contemporary jargon. Others he ignores when he doesn't attack. I've been thinking about this for a long time, but never put it bluntly in writing. Even as I do so now, I worry that I may be exaggerating, yet here, in Paris, I am convinced that this is not tyrannophobic. The leader may not be committed in principle to his dictatorship. He may not even aspire to be a tyrant. I am not sure he is thoughtful enough for such an aspiration. Perhaps it's just that he is a behavioral tyrant, very much legitimized by his mass supporters and enabled by the cynical, unprincipled leaders of the Republican Party and an obliging Supreme Court. Democracy requires differing views of opinions competing with each other, sometimes with civil politeness and sometimes quite aggressively. It is a messy and often unpleasant business. The fascist leader substitutes assertion and applause. He enters the central political arena by repeatedly fabricating claims. He had proof that the nation's first African-American president was not an American citizen. The great leader governs with a single commitment to undo everything his predecessor accomplished. Racist to his core, he, a serial sexual predator in word and likely in deed, announced his presidential candidacy attacking Mexican rapists. This is not the words of a uneducated or unawares individual, and they speak about what we all see. And when I say we all see, of course, those who are awake enough to see it. And as he points out in the article, there are so many who are mired so deeply in it that they're simply unaware of the changes that are slowly occurring around them. So what do we have to keep an eye out for and notice to understand what sort of a fascist democracy we're now living in? And one of the first things is the number of organizations within governments where rules and laws supersede morality on all levels. And I'm talking about a number of things in particular, but this is one that has come up today. An Indigenous artist here in Canada ends up taking a vacation alone, and the Canadian Border Services Agency holds him and x-rays him for drugs. Tim Hogan heard several reasons for his 5-hour detention, but he believes it was racism. A further read of the article reveals that they questioned how he could afford to stay in a 5-star luxury resort in Mexico. And the reasons they gave for everything from the x-rays to the making him strip his clothing and physically searching him were all lies, all fabrications. He was finally given a call to legal aid, and the lawyer told him, well, you have no rights. They can essentially do whatever they want to you. This is a clear-cut case of when the rules and laws cause everyday people to view, instead of their fellow brothers and sisters, they instead see those who they can dominate and tyrannize through the rules and the laws. Another hallmark of a fascist state, and we are more and more a fascist democracy, is that war and disputes with our neighbors are a trademark. It doesn't matter whether those are trade disputes or outright war. It is all designed to keep a populace focused on the idea that there is an enemy without, when indeed the enemy is among us. And it is not an enemy that we're going to kill. It is not that sort of enemy. It is the enemy that we must recognize, and the enemy that we must present the higher side of, the opposite of, not push up against this. The term and concept illegal immigration is an affront to humanity. The idea that you have such thing as an illegal immigrant. This is our planet, not your space and my space. There are no border lines. These borders are conjured, manufactured by a power and control structure that wants to keep us contained and keep us separate from each other. Reducing and removing any remaining power in the middle class. Well, we're seeing this more and more and more, and if it's not through taxes, it's through outright increases, ridiculous increases in expenses. As we talked about yesterday, gasoline in BC here jumping over 30 cents at the pump, in some cases over 45 cents overnight, literally overnight. Again, this is another type of power grab. There's really nothing left anymore of the middle class, and then there are the working poor, and then there's the outright poor. The power in our society, the power of our collectivity within our society is being very carefully and very they're doing it on purpose. This is purposeful. This is a purposeful undermining of society to make sure that those who are left with some sort of finances and some sort of ability to survive have to keep all of their focus there. And meanwhile, behind that, the system is setting us up for less and less democracy and more fascist control. It's around you everywhere. It exists within our social services agencies. It exists within our police forces. It exists within our militaries, within our politics, in every aspect, including our religions. We, as awakening beings to a new consciousness that we are one, that the only way forward for humanity as one united family together, working together, letting go of our there are no differences to resolve when humanity realizes that we are one. We can dissolve borders. There's more than enough food. There's more than enough room. Working together, we have the capability as a species to do anything we wish. We could be out in the cosmos inside of a decade. All of the problems on the planet solved. The Earth restoring herself to her former magnificence environmentally. We can do this together, but we cannot do this if we stand idly by and say nothing. Do not speak against. Speak for those values that matter. Speak for what is in alignment with our awakening consciousness. Much love to you. Namaste. Again, our apologies for the technical difficulties with the video start. Have a wonderful night.